Tim Conway presents The Window to Thoroughbred Handicapping. Hosted by Tim Conway, with champion jockey Chris McCarron, premier track announcer Trevor Denman, and professional handicapper Steve Arthur.
Hello. Strange as it may seem, I'm Tim Conway, and I'm going to be talking about a subject today that is very close to my heart and my wallet, might I add, horse racing. A reviewer once said to me, what would you rather have, an Oscar or own the horse that won the Kentucky Derby? And I said, I would rather have the winner of the 9th race at any track in the country. Wouldn't necessarily even have to be my horse. I love the sport. I'm going to introduce you to 3 fellas here who are going to join me in talking a little bit about handicapping today and how to get you to the window so that when you're sitting there and all the horses have gone by the line and you're holding a ticket, maybe you'll be able to say, I got it. Very important. We're going to be talking about the sport of kings. The sport of kings is about the sport of kings and horse racing. How did I get into this? My father was what they call a whip in Ireland, which is, if you see these pictures of fox hunts, the guys in the red coats, the guy who keeps all the dogs together and holds a whip in his hand is called a whip. He was a whip over in Ireland, and he came to this country to be a whip in this country. Now, if you have looked out in your backyard on a Saturday, you don't see too many fox hunts going by. So this became, he thought there was going to be quite a calling for whips over in this country, and obviously there wasn't. So he got into training polo ponies, working around horses, and then eventually into training race horses, and that's how I got into it. Now, when I was in high school, I didn't know what to put down for my father's occupation. My mother said, well, he is a stable manager or he is an equine financier, when in reality, he was mucking out and betting horses, as we all know. But that's how I got into this. I wanted to be a jockey. I was galloping horses in Cleveland until I was about 12, between 12 and 14 years old. I started galloping when I was 98 pounds. I got up to 138 pounds, and the horses were saying, excuse me, could you get off? Very thin little ankles that we're running on here. This is too much weight, please. So I decided to stay close to horses after that, and I am now a very bright guy because I now own horses, which we'll get into a little bit later. I'm going to introduce a guy here, a jockey type fellow. Now, how about this for some records? National riding titles, local riding titles. He has won the George Wolfe Memorial Award. He's won the Eclipse Award, both for an apprentice and a journeyman. He has ridden such great horses as Lemhi Gold, Precisionist, Turco Man. He was John Henry's personal friend around the track a couple of times. In 1987, he jumped on the back of a horse called Ali Sheba, and though Ali wanted to pray in the middle of the stretch, he went to his knees and said a few words. Chris lifted him up and said, we've got to get to the finish line here. This is very important to me and to a lot of other people. Took him across, won the Kentucky Derby, went on to win the Preakness with him. And he has ridden over 21,000 mounts. He has been in the money 52% of the time, and he has won over $92 million in purses, and that's all the time we have. Good night. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris McCarron. As I said, an outstanding jockey, really is, and actually has ridden horses for us, which, of course, in the toilet. Okay, but some of the big ones he's brought around because that's more money, sure, what do we get? The next gentleman I am going to introduce to you is the premier racetrack announcer. If you have ever heard Trevor Denman, you have heard the best. This man has the ability to bring a whole story to a race. I have seen claiming races at tracks where horses fall out of the gate, they wander around the track, they're like this, they're 44 years old. You would think, with Trevor announcing, it's the Kentucky Derby every time. The man is magnificent. He has a couple of vocal signatures that go along with Trevor, such as, and away they go. And one of the ones that I enjoy most is Trevor will say, he's moving like a winner, and if you've got your money on the 5, you can go to the window, which is a thrill if you have your money on the 5. If you have your money on the 9 at the time, it's very irritating. So I'd like to introduce a premier racetrack announcer and part-time pain in the neck, Trevor Denman. And last but not least, this gentleman is the editor-in-chief of a publication, weekly publication called Inside Track. He is also the host for a morning handicap show, also by the same name, Inside Track. No imagination, obviously, they call both of them the same thing. And more importantly, this gentleman, Steve Arthur, gave me a tip 6 years ago, which won. And I have never forgotten him for that, and now Steve lives in my house. Anybody who gives me a tip and the thing actually wins becomes a very close personal friend of mine. So, ladies and gentlemen, Steve Arthur. So, a little bit later, we're going to do some handicapping. I'm going to talk about the races from the jockey seat, and also Trevor will explain to us a little bit about how to watch a race so that we can better enjoy it, so that you will become accustomed to what goes on at the track, besides just sitting there and watching them go by the finish line. You know, if you're not accustomed to the particular area that you're in, sometimes it has a tendency to throw you in a sense. I'll give you an example of a story of a friend of mine that I took to the track for the very first time. His name was Marty. And we were in college, and he had never been to the track. So I took him, and he said, what do you do? And I said, well, you pick a number, and you go buy a ticket, and you bet on it, and if it wins, you get your, you know, whatever the ticket's worth. So he bets on this horse, and it didn't win. And he said, well, what do I do with the ticket? I said, well, you cash it in. And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, it's no good, so you just take it back to the window where you bought it and give it to him, and he'll give you your money back. He said, how do you make any money here? I said, well, they have admission and hot dogs and all these people in the stands and everything. And I said, you know, it's very simple. So I went in front of him to the guy who was the teller, and I said, the guy in back of me is going to ask for his money back. Just give him the $2 when he hands the ticket in. So gave him the $2. So Marty goes, and when he says, excuse me, this ticket didn't win. The guy says, fine. Gave him the $2. So we're sitting there, race after race, and Marty's betting, not winning, and he goes back to the same window, gets the money back. Finally, I came back with a $10 ticket that I had found, and I said, Marty, you won't believe this. I found a $10 ticket on the ground. People don't know that you can cash these in. And he looked and he said, oh my God. He said, there's tickets all over the place. I said, people don't know you can cash these in. So now he gets a paper bag. He's picking up these tickets, and he comes to me with this paper bag. He said, what do we do with these? And I said, well, you know, you got a ton of those things. I said, you have to go to that window that says large transactions. Well, you got that. Thousands of dollars. So Marty is standing in line, and now we're in an exacta race, and people are like, let's go, come on, and he gets up to the window, and he said, I'd like to cash these tickets in. The guy goes, whoa. So he starts running them through the machine, and he says, these tickets are no good. Marty said, I know. He said, but I'd like to cash them in. The guy says, get out of line. He said, wait a minute, the other guy down here, and he said, didn't you give me? You might. Now the other people begin to push and shove. I picked up Marty in the Red Cross station because the guy in back of him gave him one of these, and it's funny, Marty didn't talk to me for a while. There was a couple of years there that we just forget. But we're going to familiarize you with what happens at the tracks. We'll be back in a minute with each one of these guys individually and collectively and talk about my favorite subject, racing. There are many ways to enjoy horse racing, and obviously not just to go to the window, buy a ticket, and wait at the finish line and see if your horse comes in. There are many different areas in a racetrack that we want to talk about, you know, searching out and to better enjoy horse racing itself. You have been, obviously, on horses. You were a jockey at one time. So was I, Trevor. One little, yeah, to give you an idea, I'll give you an idea how good I was. I had never been in a starting gate. And we were breezing horses one day, and the guy said, would you get in with these two other horses? And I, of course, being 12 years old or 13 or whatever it was, thought, gee, what a thrill. And never having been in the gate before, we got in, and I was on this horse. The gates opened, and as I looked at my horse going down the track without me, I said, I should be on that horse. It would be a good idea. I felt like the road runner, because the minute the gate opened, the horse was gone, and I was sitting in midair, just like this, going, whoa, boy, they really move out of there, don't they? Take us through a little bit of, since you have been up there too, of what happens When that gate opens, they go from a dead stop to 40 miles an hour right now.
Very, very fast.
I mean, it's probably as fast as a car. So bang, you know, when they go, they go.
The initial part of just the gate opening is much quicker than a car, because those horses spring. You know, horses don't actually run, they jump, and they actually jump out of that gate, and it's very fast. And as you said, to get it behind like that,
yes, not being
easy.
on mine when it went. So there are a couple of places that we'd like to maybe direct the people to go watch a race, and one of them is, if you have an opportunity, to get down by the gate itself. I mean, you're there on many tracks on 6 furlongs or something like that. You can get pretty close to the gate and have an opportunity to actually see those guys coming out of there.
Sure, and most of the racetracks will have a start right in front of the grandstand. Usually a mile or a mile and 1/16 will start right in front of the grandstand and go down right by the rail and actually feel it right down there, and you'll get a whole different perspective of what it feels like.
And another place is the saddling ring. I think that's probably one of the more colorful places in a racetrack to go down, because there's where you see all the jockeys' silks, and you see the owners and the trainers and everybody explaining tactics. As you know, the trainers at that point explain a lot of tactics to the jockeys.
Sure.
Take your horse, get him out in front, keep him there. The trouble is, of course, that there are about 10 owners telling jockeys to do the same thing. You get your horse out and keep him there in front, and of course that's almost impossible. That's where you would see our jockey silks down there. We have a rather unusual silks that we have on our horses. We have no passing on the back of the silks. And unfortunately, we've never been out in front of anybody.
Yet, has it?
Yeah, nobody's ever been able to read him, because he's always been in the back with him. What we are looking for, especially in the saddling ring where we first see these animals, and what you can look at a horse and say, I think this horse is at least fit, ready, or whatever today.
Sure. The walking ring, the paddock, to me, can be summarized in just one word, and that's attitude. It's the attitude of the horse in the ring that counts. Add to that possibly just his overall well-being. Let me give you a little analogy. You know, in a big boxing match, particularly a heavyweight fight, if a heavyweight boxer is coming back from a layoff, the key thing the whole audience is waiting for is when he disrobes. When he takes that robe off and they can see his physical condition. You'll hear all these so-called experts in the crowd, he's carrying too much weight, or gee, isn't he on the muscle? He's ready, he's going to fight a good one tonight. Same thing with the racehorse. When they bring him out of that saddling enclosure and he walks in the paddock, it's that overall impression that you're looking for. Now that might be easy for me to say and for any horseman who's been around horses for a long time, but to our basic fan out there, he's going to say, well, I don't know what to look for in a racehorse. I know what to look for in a human being. So I would just pick out a couple of salient facts to try to offer them some hints. First of all, I'd start off with the ears. I think the ears are probably one of the most important factors about a horse's attitude. You do not want one ear going this way and the other one there, and they just kind of flopping around saying, well, do I have to go through the routine again this afternoon? You like them to both be propped forward and to take in what's going on around them. It could be horses are colorblind, but let's say there's some particular person in the crowd who's wearing something that just catches a horse's attention. Maybe somebody shouts something, and you'll see this horse look at them, and he must concentrate his attention on them and kind of watch them go by and then turn around and pick up something else. That, to me, is probably one of the most important things in the ring. What he is doing to the bit, what his mouth is doing to the bit is very important. You don't want him just walking around there with this steel thing through his mouth and he's saying, gee, I wish they'd take this thing out of my mouth. You want him to be chewing on that bit saying, I wish they'd get this thing away so I can really show them what I can do. The hindquarter section is very important, up just by the horse's rump. It's really got to be shining. You should almost be able to comb your hair on his rump, really. It's got to have a glisten to it. If it's not, he's not been well fed, he's not fit, he's not ready to roll this afternoon. The actual glistening on the horse's hindquarters, you're probably just going to have to look at horses and learn the difference between one that doesn't look good and one that does. The best example I could give for anybody out there who doesn't know what to look for is go down and watch the horses in the feature race, particularly if it's a graded race. Look at a grade 1 field very, very hard. Don't worry about betting the race. Look at the horse flesh that you're looking at and get that image in your head, and then go and take that, and when you see that image in a $10,000 or $32,000 claimer, you know this horse is fit and ready to roll this afternoon.
That's your guy, yeah. Now the jockey is put up on, given a leg up onto the horse. Now, what about the response to the horse to the jockey? Is there anything there that we look for? Like
categorically, very important moment in the paddock, and every fan should really pay attention to this. When that jockey is lifted into the irons, that horse has got to perk up. If he's got his head down and they put the jockey in the irons and he just continues like, I wish this guy would get off my back, he's going nowhere. As soon as that jockey hits the horse's back, he's got to liven up. And he'll actually prance a little and he'll really get into that. But he'll settle down after a while. But he's got to know, jockey on my back, that means action. I'm ready for action. Let's go and get them.
Okay.
He's really got to perk up.
Now he comes to the outrider pony. Is there any reaction there that you look for?
I like to see the thoroughbred nibble on the pony, the outrider pony that takes a hold of him. I think it gives him a calming effect for one. He's not using up all that excess energy that he's got by kicking out and going silly about it. He's actually just chewing into the bit. It's keeping him nice and relaxed, and it's also giving you the impression that you want, that when I'm ready to roll, I'm just conserving my energy right now. Once I get rid of this pony, I'm really going to let loose and show them what I can do.
Okay, now they go halfway up the track, they turn around and they come back and they begin to canter or break into a slow gallop. What do you look for there as far as movement?
You know, it does depend on the individual horse on that particular instance. All I would say is if you want to wager a horse and he comes out in the post parade and he's looking a little dour, he's looking not very interested, don't not bet him at that stage. Watch him warm up on the backstretch, because they often do perk up down that backstretch. You don't want a real lifeless horse, but if a horse just looks okay and you're sitting on the fence not know whether to bet it or not, watch him warm up on the backstretch. You want his head to be tucked into his chest where the rider's got a nice good hold of him, and you want again that image that he's really full of fire today. He'll probably stick up close to that pony, just that same calming influence that he will give to him, but he's got to project that image of power on the backstretch. You don't want him just to lope along, the rider stands up, he's got that long loose rein, and this horse is just kind of clappity down the backstretch, almost keeping pace with the pony. You don't want that. You want his head tucked into his stomach, and that once this guy lets me loose, I'm really going to strut my stuff out there.
What about sweating that a horse does on the way to the gate?
99.9% of the time a very bad sign, sweating. There will be horses that do win, that sweat up. Again, it pays. If you're really going to get serious about it, you should know each individual horse, because there are horses that will sweat up just about every time they go to the gate, and they will win races, but those are really the exception. Overall, for just the player who's going to go out on the weekend and take a look at a horse, horses that are sweating are no good. One of two things: they're either just not fit enough for that afternoon's race, or otherwise they're just not mentally prepared for that race, and they get themselves into such a tears that they start sweating. It's the same with a person. If a person knows that he really can cope with something, he'll start sweating, he starts getting all agitated, and he can't cope with the situation. Any little thing goes wrong, he's going to burst out in a fury. It's the same with the horse. He's all agitated. He's like, I don't really want to be out here. I'm not in the mental condition to go into that starting gate and run. And you'll see a lot of the times when a horse is sweating badly, he'll lean on the pony. He'll actually lean on him like that. It's almost like, I'm very nervous, I'm scared, I do not want to run this afternoon. So those two things do go together. But sweat, 99.9, take them out.
I get that way going to the window just a bit. I break out in sweat. We have often said, and eventually what we're going to do in our handicapping is try to show people that you don't have to go through a racing form if you're going to be wagering on a horse, that you don't have to say, well, he went in 110 and 2 here, and this horse went in 110 and 1, so he should be a second faster. That in reality, the times, though they are a factor, obviously, in racing, because the guy who gets there first is going to have the better time, in a sense, are not all that important, that it is what happens during the race.
Sure.
How do you see a race set up?
See, why I don't go on times, and it's appropriate to any racetrack in the United States, any racetrack in the world, is because the only time you could use times is if that track played identical every single day. If they never added sand to the track, and if a fast track was fast and a slow track was slow. But there are not. You get fast tracks, and then you get the very next day the same track is listed as fast, but it's a slow fast. They might be running decent times, but it is not the same track as it was the day before. So comparing times, to me, that's one of the points I just do not see the logic in it. And secondly, you've got to understand that horses running out there, there's such a big difference between a maiden $32,000 claiming filly against a grade 1 horse. Now, if you're getting those lesser horses in certain areas, it might be a maiden $5,000 claimer. And they are running out there in 46 and 447. That animal is running just about as fast as it can run. That is the best of its ability. But if your grade 1 horse is running in 47, he's going very slowly. Now, very, very few fans really differentiate between the quality of horse. They are just glued on that tote board because they've been taught the stereotype way, and it knocks in 46 and 3, and they say they're going slow. But that poor animal out there is not going slow. She's going as fast as she can possibly go. So my theory, the time, I don't want to use the word irrelevant, that's a little extreme, but the time is of little importance. The energy they are expanding, that is vital. You've got to look at that horse there out there on the lead, not at the teletimer, and look how much energy the particular animal is using out there. If the rider's asking it, let's say by the half-mile pole or going to the quarter pole, and that horse is running to the fastest of its ability at that time, it's expanding as much energy as it can't go any quicker. So who cares what the time is?
Right.
Another horse is cruising along up there and they knock up 46 and 1, and you'll hear the jockey come back and say, gee, I didn't realize we were going that fast. They weren't going that fast. The track was just playing very fast that day. What the jockey means was, I've ridden thousands of horses, and I know this horse was not exerting itself. He was going well within himself. That's what he's actually saying when he says, I didn't realize we were going that fast. What they mean is, we weren't expanding that much energy out there. I think we were going along very easily. So I rather go with how the horse is going rather than how fast it's going.
Okay. We talk a little bit about trouble, because you compared it really to driving on the freeway. When you see a race and you see the past performance that a horse has gone from, say, 3 lengths to 9 lengths back to 4 lengths to losing by a head. I mean, this horse has made some drastic moves during this race. You compared it, if you would, to driving a car on a freeway, where you go up to a car, he stops, you got to stop, he pulls ahead, now you have to accelerate. That, I assume, is taking an awful lot out of a horse.
You know, it is a direct analogy to the freeways. Anybody who lives in a major city and who's driven the freeways will know what it feels like. If you clammed in, let's take a 4-lane freeway, and you're in one of the middle lanes, you're just going. You're kind of doing what the other guys are doing. If they keep going, you keep going. Now, all of a sudden, you notice they're starting to back up a little. Your first reaction is to take your foot off the pedal. And that would be the equivalent of a rider just easing, not taking up on a horse, just easing back a little bit, where you might see him just like say, uh-oh, something's happening here, and he won't actually pull on the horse's mouth, but instead of just letting him go along relaxed, he'll just tighten up the bit a little bit in anticipation of trouble. The same as when you see it happening on the freeway. Now suddenly you're on the freeway and you see those red lights hit you, you slam your foot on the brake. For a horse in action, when the jockey sees, uh-oh, I'm getting shut off here, you take a hold and you pull as hard as you can, because if you don't, that horse is going to clip the horse's heels in front of him and you going down. So it's a direct analogy in there. So if a horse has to ease just a little and take up, it will be the same on the freeway, you taking your foot off the pedal. You're going to lose ground, but your momentum is still there. It's going to cost you a little bit, but not that much. But if you really take up, which is when the jockey takes a hold and jerks on the horse's mouth, it's the equivalent of slamming your brakes on the freeway. And imagine the guy in the right-hand lane doesn't have to stop. He's going to go right on by you. So by the time you've recovered and got out of the lane that you're in and got going again, he's home Jerome already by then. So it's an exact analogy. Freeway driving to horse racing, same thing.
And I would assume that in the next race, even that race, obviously, it's going to take its toll on the horse. But I think even doesn't it carry over? I mean, if you were going, say, from 9 lengths back, and now you suddenly find an open path and you got to get to the wire, say, in an eighth of a mile, I mean, that is going to take an awful lot out of a horse, so that the next time he comes out, I mean, he still could be feeling the effects of that particular race.
Oh, for sure. He's going to have to almost run a double race if you have to really check bad. And the horse comes back and he's flying and he finishes second, and you think, well, next time he's a sure thing to win, but you've got to consider what it actually took out of that horse. If he didn't have to check that badly, he would have won easily and would not have. Again, we get back to that thing of how much energy do you use in a race is more important than how fast you run a race.
What do you look for in a horse's movement, say a smooth movement of, even though he may have lost the last time, he's coming from, say, 8 lengths off to 8 lengths to 6 lengths to 4 lengths, and he finishes 4th by 4 lengths. I mean, it still seems to be a gradual move that doesn't necessarily hurt the horse in a sense for his next race.
I think the same as we said in the paddock, the whole key word is attitude. I believe in a horse, in the actual race, the whole key word there is rhythm. Watch the way the horse does it. You know, a horse can really run his heart out and really exert himself and make up that gradual ground, and he's not going to run any faster next time. If he's 8 lengths back to 4 lengths, but he was running to the best of his ability, he's not going to improve next time. He's going to do the same thing next time. But the horse who perhaps is just preparing for a race, he's getting ready for a race, gets in a little bit of trouble early, and he's taken to the outside, and he's running on fluently, motionlessly down, not motionlessly,
in a fluid movement.
In a fluent movement. Fluently is the word I'm looking for. The horse that is then running fluently down the lane, passing horses without really having to exert himself, and he's closing ground, he's going to be very dangerous next time when he really gets his mind on business and really gets a good, clean trip, and he really puts it in. He's going to be very dangerous. So I think the whole word there that we're looking for is fluency in motion. As we said earlier, the horses don't actually run They jump, and because of that jumping action, they throw their front legs out, and it is the length of the stride that really counts. When a horse starts getting tired, he'll start shortening his stride. And let's take, nobody really knows for sure, but let's say that a good length of a stride would be in the region of 18 to 20 feet. That's per stride. When they start getting tired, that probably becomes 12 or 13 feet, and that's why they're not covering as much ground. They're using the same amount of energy, but because they're tired, they can't throw those feet anymore, and they start shortening their stride. And once they start shortening their stride, that's when the others start passing them.
Right. So in other words, they aren't really, in a sense, they are just tiring. I mean, they are not, horses aren't passing them. I mean, they are just backing up.
They're backing up, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, well, you know, perhaps with a little information like this, we should, they're not open yet, but perhaps we could get down there. Thank you very much. We're going to use this information a little later on when we get to Steve in order to help us make our adjustments here in what you call the homework before we get to the track. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank
Hopefully,
you. I hope the guys out
we'll
there
pick up a
enjoy
buck
the
or two, you know?
Yeah.
Thanks, Trevor. I am fortunate to be sitting with my hero. Now, this guy has ridden some of the biggest races in the country, including the Kentucky Derby, which is, everybody has to win a Kentucky Derby. If you're going to be a good jockey, you got to win the Kentucky Derby, which you already have. He rode a horse for us one time, and I noticed that the horse was doing fairly well coming around the turn. We were in a better position than we normally had been in the past. We were, I think, fifth. And then I noticed all of a sudden the horse backing up, and he finished way back. And so I came down to the winner's circle after the race, and I said to Chris, "What happened?" And he said, "I lost the whip." And I said to Chris, "Could I ask you a question? Just how much equipment are you responsible for out there? I mean, you don't have a raincoat, you don't have a hat, you don't have a briefcase. It seems like a simple thing to hang onto a whip, doesn't it?" But of course, I imagine those accidents happen.
Well, some of us are butterfingered, you know.
I know. Now, you've seen, I told you I was going to be a jockey. And is there any question, I beg your pardon, any question in your mind that had I gone on to be a jockey, that those awards that cover your house could have been mine?
There's absolutely no question in my mind, Tim. Absolutely none. You had no chance whatsoever.
Right. Thank you very much. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about what goes on from your seat, which is on the back of a horse, obviously, around the race. First of all, let's talk a little bit about being familiar with the horse. I mean, you don't walk down to the paddock and say, "Hello, how are you, what's your sign, what time to get off to the horse?" Obviously, you have been in contact with this animal before that, as far as workouts and things like that, right?
No, that's not right.
You're nuts.
No.
Some of you are.
Well, quite a few of them I am, yeah.
The more expensive ones, as
we
say.
get acquainted with the ones that we're going to ride in some more important races coming up. Years ago, when I used to go out to the track every single morning, I quite often got on every single horse that I was going to ride in the future, but that just doesn't happen too often anymore, at least with me.
Yeah. What about workouts? You know, a lot of people go to the bottom line of a race, and say, for instance, a maiden race, and they go to the bottom line, and the only really tracking that we have are the workouts. Now, how do you think that that's kind of a valid reason to go down to the bottom line and say, "Gee, this horse worked in 58, he worked in 36, he must really be able to fly," or does that mean anything at all?
Well, it can mean a great deal, but in order to go by the workouts, when you're going to use, if you're going to use the workouts as a reference point for handicapping, you must really know a little bit more about the trainer who's training that horse. There are some trainers who really like to see their horses fly in the morning, and other trainers don't want to see them doing very much at all. They want to save the horse's energy mostly for the afternoon. And they have different ways of doing that, different ways of making them run fast and different ways of saving them for the afternoon. Very often you'll see a work in say 49 or 50 seconds for a half a mile. Well, what you don't know is how far that horse galloped up to that point before the work and how far he galloped out after the work. In essence, that horse very well could have worked, say, 7/8 of a mile by the time he was finished pulling up. And in essence, you're looking at the paper and you see only a half and 50, but you're not really seeing everything that the horse put into that work.
Right. So, in other words, you really can't go too much by that unless you're really familiar and they want to go through the whole process of knowing the trainer and how he works and everything. Yep. Let's talk a little bit about recency. Obviously, with our horses, you don't have to consider recency because most of them are in a body cast most of the time, or ours are now swimming.
They run all too recent as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, thank you very much. Ours are now swimming, as you know, which is a new thing, too. When they can't walk, they swim, which is real good. And ours, if there's ever a 100-meter backstroke, our horse, obviously, you'll be on it because I think we can do something. But When you're looking for recency in a horse, what do you look for as far as, we were talking that some horses, you know, we were talking about one race where a horse came back in 4 days and ran again. As a matter of fact, you were mentioning one race where a horse ran in the first race and ran in the 8th race at the same day and won both ends of the of those 2 races. But what do you look for in recency on an average within, excluding the big horses, the stakes horses and the handicaps, because obviously they're working towards that race, but in the meat and potatoes of the track where it's really the claimers and the allowance horses?
Well, you don't want to see a horse running too often. If you know a horse's pattern and he's consistent when he's running, say every 14 or every 7 days, that's a little bit, I think that's a little too quick to come back for a race, because a horse really expends a lot of energy when he runs. But there are horses that run better when they're wheeled right back into a race a week or 2 weeks later. However, they can't keep up with that for too long. They might be able to do that 2, 3, 4 times in a row, and then you're going to see that horse starting to tail off, most likely. But I would say on the average, it's probably best to give a horse like 21 days in between races, I would think.
Do you find in the claiming races that a horse kind of really races himself into condition? I mean, you don't see too many workouts between, as you said, a horse really expends himself. And if you've ever seen a horse in a stall coming back after a race, I mean, they are really bushed. I mean, obviously, you put that kind of pressure on an animal to run around a track, and with that kind of pressure, other horses bumping and smacking and everything, obviously he's going to be a little tired. I know I would, just going down to get a loaf of bread.
You look like you get tired, dude.
Yeah. That it does expend a horse. Do you find that on the claimers that they kind of race themselves into condition from time to time?
Well,
I mean, you don't see a horse, a claimer running a race, then working and then running back.
That's usually because they run quite a bit more often
Yeah.
than the horses running in the higher class races, stakes and allowance races. The claimant horses are put to the test more often, so therefore there's really no need to breeze them a great deal between races, having them work out in the morning. So it takes less conditioning that way. If a horse is going to run more often, it just stands to reason they're not going to have to perform that much in the morning. However, you do have to gallop them and breeze them every once in a while. The breezing part usually is just to keep a horse's air built up. The galloping is basically to keep the horse's muscle and legs in tone.
Great. Let's go through a race. You know, a lot of people, as Trevor was saying, you know, a lot of people show up at the track, they buy a ticket, they sit on the finish line, they go, ching, ching, oh, gee, the 7 lost. They don't really have an opportunity to enjoy the race. To me, I love to go to the race, take a pair of binoculars, and watch the entire race. I mean, obviously, each race is a new show, and each one is different from the last one. And you pick up so much by watching through binoculars and actually seeing a race, and that way you can enjoy the whole day, you enjoy the whole show. When you get into a gate, what preparation do you make for when that gate flies open, obviously going from a dead stop to about 35 to 40 miles an hour? How do you position yourself to brace yourself for that kind of an acceleration right as soon as the gates fly open, you're on your way?
Well, each rider has his own individual style of holding onto the horse and putting himself in a position to leave the starting gate and to leave there on time. Basically, what I'd like to do is, I used to, when I first started riding, just grab one handful of mane, and I had the reins, 2 reins in one hand, and the right rein in my right hand, and a handful of mane. And but as I got a little bit more experience, I learned that it's better to hold on with 2 hands. So basically, I have both hands on the reins and filled with mane at the same time. And I like to position one foot just slightly in front of me a little bit, and the other foot in behind me. The foot in behind is to prevent me from my weight from falling back and enable the horse to come out of there on balance, in balance. And the foot in front is just a little preventive measure in case he stumbles or anything. I have just a little bit of support either underneath me or directly in front of me to prevent me from going flying over his head. That might not be the best style, but that's the style I've adopted, and it's the one I use all the time.
Now, you guys are probably about this far apart when you consider the separation in the gate, so that when you come out, you have no idea what's going to happen as soon as those gates open. I mean, somebody can come over on you. I mean, it is really traffic time out there. it's almost unbelievable for people who have never been even up to the starting gate of what goes on when those horses come flying out of there. Now you find, okay, the traffic begins to separate a little bit, and if you're on the outside, you're going to try to make it to the inside. If you're on the inside, you're going to try to get up on the inside. Now what happens? Suppose now you're obviously in the race. What do you look for now with the other horses?
Well, it all depends on how your horse gets away from the gate. If he gets away from there cleanly and he's going ahead and sprinting, showing good speed, then there's going to be less for you to think about than if you're back in the middle of the pack. If you're back in the middle of the pack or further back than that, there's a lot more that you have to be aware of. You have to be aware of horses in front of you that are changing lanes. A lot of times the horse that you're on may not care for all that sand and dirt hitting him in the face. Therefore, horses climb, that is the term we use, when they climb. What they're doing is when the dirt is pounding them in the face as they're running up against it, it comes back in their face and hits them in the eyes and in the nose and everything, and they'll get their head up in the air and they'll run in this manner. What they think they can do is get up above the dirt, so they try to lunge up high so that the dirt won't hit them in the face. Little do they know they can't get up that high. Mm-hmm. But when a horse does that, there's one of two things you can do. You can ride him aggressively and maybe reach back and hit him in the butt with the stick and try to force that horse to run against the dirt, or you can use the option to let him settle, let him get used to that dirt, become accustomed to it, and hope that eventually he's going to run against it. But if they don't eventually tolerate the dirt and run up against it, then you have to do the next best thing, and that's try to get to the outside where it's not hitting them. Mm-hmm. The problem with that is you're going to lose ground, and the more ground you lose, the less chance you have of getting to the wire first.
Now, this is only a fraction of the seconds that you're into the race already, and already the horse is getting hit by dirt. You're obviously getting hit by dirt. The option to go ahead, I mean, there's always the opportunity that you're going to run up on another horse, that he is actually, if it's a maiden sometimes, and the first time they've actually been in a race, I mean, they may be just insane by the fact that there are other horses out here, and what are we doing out here? This guy is hitting me, and we seem to be running into other people. I mean, it is obviously a very dangerous sport, as you know. I mean, there's a reason that the ambulance follows you guys around. I mean, I don't think I would select a job where an ambulance follows me to work. But, okay, now you get the horse a little bit settled. Now, what do you look not to happen to you? In other words, what do you want not to happen to you? You don't want to be in on the rail and have other horses coming up on you. How do you try to avoid trouble, in other words?
What you don't want to do is have your horse's momentum broken. You want to keep that momentum going. As the race goes on, a horse should really actually be building up momentum, and once that momentum is stopped, then you have to work on getting it started again. Well, with horses that are not very quick off the blocks and have a style that come from behind, those are the type of horses that take a while to get running, and if you get one of those kind of horses stopped, it's difficult to get them started again, and by the time you do get them started again, the race is over. So what you want to do is just basically try to find the best trip that you can, whether it be between horses, down on the rail. These are all things that come up different. Every single race that you ride, it might come up a little different than the one before. If you feel it's in the horse's best interest, in your best interest, to go around, even though you're going to lose ground, and that's what you have to do. But mind you, there are other things that you have to take into consideration. If the track is a little bit wet, we wear 2 or 3 pairs of goggles, and as you're going down the backside, this dirt is coming up hitting you in the face. You have to reach up and pull down a pair of goggles, and you have to hope that you don't pull down all 3 pairs, because if you pull down all 3 pairs, then you're really in trouble, because then you can't see because the sand's hitting you in the eyes. But that doesn't happen too often. But when it's rainy and the track is muddy and stuff like that, well, the bottom pair, which is right against your face, will fog up, and that becomes very dangerous at that point in time.
Jeez, it is a busy day at the office then.
It's
you
busy.
Just don't go out there and, you know, it's a minute 10 around, and what have we done? You know, people say, geez, that's an easy job. You get on a horse, you ride for a minute, and you get a lot of money. So far, you're only halfway around the track, and you have all kinds of turmoil going on there. When do you know, how do you set a horse down? In other words, it's another thing, an interesting feature to watch in a race, that when we're watching all you guys, you all seem to be going the same motion, and then all of a sudden somebody says, this is it, this is the race. Bang, everybody seems to set their horse down, and everybody now starts a whole new motion. What happens at that point?
Well, that's the next thing that you, when you asked earlier about what do you not like to do. At that point in time, you want to maintain the balance on your horse the best you can. When it really comes time for that horse to go to running full out, you want to be in a balanced position on that horse's back to keep him from going off stride. You want to, if you are going to go ahead and use the whip at all, you want to use it in such a way that your weight is directly in the center of that horse's back and it never wavers. If you move around too darn much, then you're going to throw that horse off stride and you're going to make him slow down. So you really have to think about balance. The next thing is rhythm. You have to get in rhythm with that horse's action. It's a different type of rhythm than when you're sitting against him. If you're sitting against a horse and you have hold of him, well, then that's one type of feeling. Then as you start letting that horse run, you get off that horse's mouth and you start giving him his head and asking him for his effort. Then your weight gets a little bit more forward, and that's a little bit different feeling. And then when you really start riding them and get up on their neck and start pushing, that's another feeling altogether. And that takes a lot of rhythm and coordination. You have to be concentrating all the time. This is another area where some of the better riders have a great ability to go from a very broad-mindedness to a very narrow-mindedness, if you forgive the term. Broad-mindedness is being aware of absolutely everything that's going on around you. The horse is getting shut off in front of you. What are you going to do? Should I go here? Should I go there? To all of a sudden, now you're getting after this horse and you're making him run. You have to be concentrating on your animal and your animal only. But if there's an incident where there's a little bump or something like that, and you have to come back and speak to the stewards,
yes,
or during an inquiry or something like that, if there's an infraction, well, then you have to have the presence of mind to know what happened at that point in time, because they will ask you your opinion. So it's a shifting of the thought process that goes on from the time you're just sitting against the horse to the time you're starting to let him run to the time you're really going full out. You have to be able to go from wide open to concentration to wide open to concentration, right back and forth.
Now, we haven't even mentioned the fact that you are really, if people want to experience what is happening out there, just stand on your toes for 1 minute and 10 seconds. I mean, just try to do that alone. I mean, you are really balancing on a fine wire. It's just practically to your toes of your shoes, or boots rather, are in the stirrups, and you are on this thing that weighs anywhere from 1,100 to 1,500 pounds, going about 35 miles an hour, that if this horse decides to go from here to here, you better be alert and be able to go with him over here, or you're going to be over here and he's over here, and so long. I mean, you're an acrobat, really, for 1.5 minutes.
That's true. Even people that have ridden horses all their life, they have never really ridden a horse in this manner. And that is with the stirrups that are very, very short. Yeah. The length of my stirrup webbings, the leather that holds a stirrup onto the saddle, is about this long. So from the top of that horse's back, my feet are in a position where they're only about this far down on that horse's side. It's not like you're riding in a Western saddle or an English saddle and your legs are wrapped flat around that horse and you can hang on with your legs. We really cannot hang on with our legs. We keep our perch and we keep our balance, as you mentioned, with the balls of our feet, and we hold on with the calves of our legs. But if the horse is to do anything really abruptly, go one direction or the other, or stop, we are basically staying on with our hands and our arms, and that's where the legs you need strength in the legs to maintain the balance, but if there's any abrupt change, we have to hang on with our hands and arms.
Now, I haven't even mentioned the fact that now you're carrying a whip, too, sometimes. But now you might. Now you have to use the whip. You know, obviously there's a horse on your inside, you're going to hit him on the right, he may move in, or there's a horse over here. How do you, now you also have to adjust to that, obviously, and you also have to adjust when to use a whip, and if to use a whip, obviously.
That's right, yeah, and you have to just play it by ear. If you've ridden a horse before, and you have applied the whip, and he responded well, then you know pretty much that horse will go ahead and run for you, respond for you when you apply the whip. However, if you've never ridden a horse before, and you turn for home and you're sitting there, you have all kinds of horse, and you ask him to run, and he spurts a little ways for you, and then he feels like he's not doing 100%, and you reach back and you hit him, and all of a sudden his ears just go straight back, and his ears disappear, and he's pinning them and he's sulking. Well, that pretty much gives the indication that he doesn't like the whip, and if you hit him again, he might resent it even more and slow down some more. So that's totally up to the rider's discretion at that point. You have to decide whether you're going to reach back and hit him again, or you're better off not to do it.
So each ride is a test. I mean, are you really, truly, in whatever time it takes, whether you're in a, in a 6 furlong or 7 or a mile and 1.125 or whatever, during that period, you really have to get to know this horse, plus all of this nonsense that is going on around you all the way around. Well, it truly is fascinating, and I suggest to anybody who's, if you're going to the races for the first time or you've been going for 20 years, to get a pair of binoculars and watch these guys, because it is, you know, obviously you know how I feel about jockeys. We've had conversations before. They are the world's greatest athletes, without a doubt, and the skills that they project during a race are absolutely phenomenal. What you are in control of, this monster in effect, and to guide somebody in and out of traffic and to get to the line first is phenomenal. It's I certainly have an appreciation for you guys. Chris was going, I don't know whether it was the Arlington Million or somewhere, and he was getting on an airplane, and he had with him a large bag that was a clothing bag, and I said, you know, this guy must have all of his secrets in there. Maybe his silks, maybe something that he refers to during a race, something, maybe even an altar, I don't know. And I say, Chris, what do you have in that bag? And he said, a king-size pillow. And he carries on the plane, and he has to have his own pillow with him. Here is this hero, this man who is champion of champions, carrying his own little pillow that says nighty-night on it, and I won't tell him about the teddy bear, really, because I think we would be going too far. Thanks, Chris. Truly, as I say, if you have an opportunity, when you're watching these races, watch these guys, because they are, without a doubt, the best. Thank you. Now comes either the difficult or easy part. We are now going to deal with the daily racing form, which is, I guess, the Bible, really, in racing. This is where all the information is, and this will lead you to either a winner or a... Okay, this information that is in the daily racing form, if this were a medical book, I've spent enough time with this information to become a brain surgeon. So, you can either take this information, stick it in here and try to figure out a horse, or you can go to the track and get a tip, and the guy who gives you a tip is usually called Red. He usually has gray hair, of course, but he had red hair at one time. They call him Red. He has plaid pants on, a check shirt, and 2 teeth, and smells like a buffalo. If this man were your banker, you would not entrust this man with your money, but you will take a tip from Red, who is now gray. You can do that, or you can what they call handicap and come up with a horse that makes some sense. Steve Arthur, who, as I said before, is the editor-in-chief of Inside Track, is a phenomenal handicapper, believe me. You have more computers down in that joint that you have. You could go to the moon and back, obviously. Now, I spent a lot of time with this form going over nightly to pick a winner. I will go to a track and say maybe I take $200. I will come home not having lost at all, but I once in a while will have a $180 hot dog, which I have to explain to my wife. I would like to stop doing that, I think. Now, how, I know I go through this thing and I spend an hour sometimes on a race, and I come up with the horse, you do this, you go, you circle something and go on. First of all, you make a decision. I can never quite make a decision. And even after I do make a decision, in order to get from this paper to the window to make a bet, there's always a guy there that I call the Terminator who is making a $200 bet in front of me. And after I've spent an hour doing this, I follow what he's betting, because after all, he's betting $200, he would know. Now, how do I stop doing all those things? What do you look for in these values in these horses that you can do that rapidly?
Well, Tim, there's a lot of shortcuts trying to find this winner. A lot of ways to really eliminate horses, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to eliminate a lot of these horses from contention this afternoon. Now, we use computers, as you said. We have statistics that go back a lot of years, and there are certain statistics that really hold up year in and year out, and that's what we use in our handicapping to make it a lot simpler. Now, we have 4 rules that we're going to use today to kind of lead us to the horse, or horses that will maybe not win, but run very, very well and hopefully win for us. Okay. And they are, number 1, recency. That's the first thing we're going to look at. When was the last time this horse ran? Number 2, we're going to look at the weight. What kind of weight is this horse carrying this afternoon? What kind of weight did this horse carry in the past? Number 3, value. Where is the value on this horse? Is this horse running with his friends, horses that he can beat? And number 4, past performances. We're going to take a look and see how this horse has run in its last few races and kind of analyze those on what we can expect this afternoon.
Okay. All right. First, let's take a look at recency.
Okay, very important. We want to find a horse that has run at this racetrack, has run with other horses, is in condition. So we look at recency. We find out on a profile of winners and horses that run well, the average winner runs around 12 and a half days ago. But we find the drop-off point is after 21 days, and that's rule number 1. This is a rule that we really don't want to bend or break. 21 days is a rule, and we want to stay right on it, Tim.
Okay, so you find a horse that is raced in the last 21 days at this track, okay?
Right. Okay, let's go to the charts and see how we do this. Now on the charts over here for recency, we want to go back 21 days. Let's say today is March 29th. Well, we subtract 21 from that, and that gives us the cutoff date of March the 8th. Over in the center here, let's say today is July the 23rd. Subtract 21 from that. Of course, that would be July the 2nd. Third chart, September 30th. 21 days from that gives us September 9th. Of course, if we're at the beginning of the month, we have to go back to last month.
30 days, that's September, and all that comes into play, I assume, there. Okay, so you look for a horse that is raced in 21 days at this track. Probably a good idea when you go is to look up the day's date, subtract that 21 days right away, and then kind of keep that number somewhere on your program, whether it's 14 or 12th or the 2nd or whatever, so that that number always, you know that that is the cutoff date for the horse, okay?
Right, you refer to that throughout the day.
Okay, all right, onward, let's look at weight.
All right, weight is very important for a lot of different reasons, and we won't go into all of those reasons. Let's just say that it is very, very important. Now on weight, Tim, we're going to go back the last 5 races. Let's take a look at our chart once again. And the rule is here, we want the horse to carry an average weight today that he has carried in his last 5 races. Over here on chart number 1, today's weight is 117 pounds. We look back through the past performances. Now you see a horse there with 108 and a little 5 next to that.
Right. Apprentice.
Now that means, of course, it was an apprentice rider that day. We add that 5 pounds back in when we're making this calculation. You can see that this horse probably has not carried the average of 117 pounds in its last 5 races. Let's go over to number 2. Number 2, this horse has to carry 120 pounds today. You see he did not average 120 pounds in his last 5 races.
Never carried 120.
Of course, it's his high weight for his career today. Over at number 3, this horse has to carry 116 pounds. Because he has 111, we add that 5 pounds. We feel, of course, that this is an apprentice, and he gets a 5-pound weight allowance, but we're going to take that into consideration today, that he gets that 5 pounds for a reason. It's because he's not as good as the other riders, maybe at this point in his career. So this horse has to carry 116 pounds. We look down there, and this horse does qualify because throughout his last 5 races, he has carried an average of 116 pounds.
Right on the nose, as a matter of fact.
Right.
Okay. So he must have carried an average of the weight that he is carrying today in his last 5 races. And if it's an apprentice, you add the weight to the present weight. So on the first chart, for instance, 108, and you'd add the 5 pounds, he's carrying 113 today. Okay?
Correct.
Okie doke. All right. Now we're going to explain these a little bit further, too. This is just the first time around here. And let's go now to the value.
Okay, the value line is to find out where the horse fits in relationship to the other horses on the racetrack and if he's in the right level today. Let's refer back to our chart. Now the rule here is, Tim, that we're looking for a horse on today's value line that has run in that value or better in 2 out of his last 3 races. So our first one here, we have $6,250. That's today's value line. Now, in this last race, we ran for $8,000, $6,250, and $6,250, so that horse does qualify 2 out of its last 3. Now, the second one's a little trickier.
Okay.
This horse is running today for $8,000. You can see in its last 3 races, it ran for Maiden $10,000, Maiden $15,000, and Maiden $10,000. Well, you're saying to yourself, it ran for a higher value, but of course it was not at the same level. It ran against maidens. Those are horses that have never won a race before. Today, it tries winners, so this horse does not qualify on the rule.
So if it's in a claiming race, it's got to be in a claiming race.
Has to be in a claiming race.
Okay.
Now we'll go to number 3. This horse has been in an allowance race 2 times, and before that it was in a maiden claiming event. Today, it drops into a claiming event. Again, this horse does not qualify because it would need 2 out of 3 in claiming races.
So even though it really, I would say that the last horse is dropping in class, that he would be the class of that race, but he has not been in a claiming race, so he doesn't qualify.
He does not qualify today.
Okay. Okay, now let's get into past performance. You have a couple of symbols that you use for past performance. Let's see what they are.
Okay, some quick marks that we make on our racing form. Let's take a look at these. And again, we're going to go over these very quickly, and we're going to go into detail in just a few moments. Number one is the winning move. We put a little circle around that because this horse won its last race. We have the backward flow. This is a horse that probably slowly went backwards in the race. He may not have dropped way, way off, but he had a slow retreat during that race. The next one is the closing flow. This horse made a closing move in the race to gain on the winner. These are lengths on the winner, not position in running, but lengths in the winner. And finally, the erratic move. This horse may have gained a little bit, then dropped back, or dropped back, then gained a little bit. It's an erratic horse, and that's what we want to look at.
Like what Chris was talking about, the troubled moves and things of that nature that are exhausting to a horse.
Exactly.
Okay, you gave us 4 things to do here on the racing form. Now, how does this apply to actually the racing form itself and all the past information that you have up here?
Okay, we have the past information right here on one of the horses, the past performance line of a horse in the daily racing form. It has, of course, the horse's name, the jockey, the owner, the breeder, the color, the sex, all the information that is available on this horse that's running today. Now, what we're really interested in, of course, are these certain things that we talked about earlier: recency, weight, past performance, and value. We're going to be making little dots on our racing form after we check these off. Number one, of course, is recency, and that's the day and the month of the horse's last race. We have the weight it's carrying this afternoon, the weight this horse carried in its last 5 races. We have the past performance line, how this horse ran in its last race, and also the value line here, what the value of today's race is, what this horse has been running in its last 3 races. Those are the things that we're interested in today.
Okay.
Now, what we'll do is block out all the other information to make it very easy to see what we're looking at today.
Okay, now that's interesting, because when you do that, you've taken out the horse's name, the owner, the trainer, the breeding, and all the other information on the form itself. So that you really, when you concern yourself only with that information, you're really not influenced by the horse's name or the trainer or anything else like that. It's an interesting aspect to it.
So you really find that you have a lot of prejudice against certain horses or trainers or jockeys, and when you do it this way, it makes it much easier to analyze. So let's take a look at it again. Right here we have the date, of course, of the last race, which was March 8th. Now we have to make sure that we have the same year. Make sure that, of course, this horse did not race a year ago, and sometimes that can fool you a little bit, but this is the date of the last race. Right over here, we have the weight that the horse carried in its last 5 races, and of course the weight that it will be carrying this afternoon. We want to make that comparison so that these average out to what the horse is carrying this afternoon. Over here is the value line. This is the value the horse is running for today. That's $35,000 in the value line of its last 3 races, and of course we want 2 out of 3 there to qualify. And then over here is the past performance line. This is very important, and what we're looking for here, Tim, are just the small numbers. That's the lengths behind the winner. These very small numbers.
Okay, let me see if I understand the value line. Okay, if a horse is in a claiming race today, it must have raced in a claiming race 2 out of its last 3 races, and at the value that it's racing today or higher. In other words, if it's racing at $35,000 today, it should have raced in a claiming race 2 out of the 3 last races for $35,000 or more. Right?
That's correct. Let's go right back to the rule.
Okay.
$35,000 is today's price. We have to be in that claiming price 2 out of the last 3 races or better.
Right.
Because this is a claimer, it needs claiming prices 2 out of its last 3 or better. In this example here, of course, we don't have that. And now, if they were in allowance ranks, it has to be in allowance races 2 out of its last 3 races.
At the same value today or higher?
Or higher.
Okay. Now, let's go back to the past performance, because I know you have some marks that you make for past performance. Let's explain those, and then let's take a race with 8 or 9 horses and see if we can pick out a winner without ever knowing the horse's name, the trainer, or the jockey, or any other the information that goes along with it. Okay, let's look first of all at the winning move of a horse. And now this is a horse that only has won a race. That's what you consider a winning move. Okay, and we're dealing only with the lengths and the last 3 calls of the horse in the past performance line. Okay, what do you got?
All right, this is a horse, as you said, that has won its last race, and we signify it by a big 0. Now, we're looking for the smaller numbers up here. This means this horse, at this call, was 1 length in front, 1.5 lengths, 2 lengths, and 3 lengths. Of course, Tim, this is a horse that just won more and more the farther they went. The second winning move is this horse was 3 lengths behind the lead horse at this call, then was 1 length behind, then became 1 length ahead, and finally won the race 2 lengths in front of the second place horse. The third one is this horse was a neck behind the leader at this call. It was 1 length in front, 2 lengths in front, and then kind of slowed down there and still held on and won that race, but only by a nose. The bottom one, this horse was 1 length, but running second at this point, then took the lead by a length, then fell back, then came back again, probably a very, very hard race, and won that race by a neck. Now, in our racing form, all of these will be with a big 0. This horse won its last race. And in that, we will put 3, 2, nose, or neck, whatever happened in that race and how that horse won its last race.
Okay, now before we go on, let's go back to what Chris said earlier, that we're looking for a horse that gives us a smooth performance. In other words, a horse that's going from 1 length in front to 2 lengths in front to 3 lengths in front is much more desirable than a horse that is 1 length in front and then suddenly drops back to second and then goes on to be first again. In other words, that's kind of an erratic move, and even though he won the race, it was a move there that could affect his next race. Okay, let's go on to the backward flow.
Okay, the backward flow. Now, take a look at this horse. It was 3 lengths behind, was 3 lengths behind, then 3.5, then 4. So this horse was traveling right around 3.5 lengths, and at the end of the race, gave it up and finished 4 lengths back. So we would signify it this way with a 4 in here, that this horse was backing up. The second one, horse was 3 lengths back, then only 1 length back, then 2.5 back, then 3.5 back. This horse again going in the wrong direction. Coming down here, this horse was only a head back the first 2 calls of this race, then was 1 length back, then 2 lengths back. Now it finished rather close to the winner, 2 lengths back, but we're still going to give it a backwards 2. Over here we have a horse that was 2 back, 3 back, 4 back, 5 back. This is a horse that just gradually went farther and farther back in the race.
Okay, but again, these are smooth moves. I mean, these are not erratic moves.
Not erratic.
They went from a length to a length and a half to another length behind. I mean, it was a nice even flow,
move.
which again, Chris was talking about, that at least the horse wasn't going backward and forward all of a sudden. It was going in the wrong direction, but it was coming back smoothly. Okay, let's go now to the closing flow.
All right, this is a horse that closes on the winning horse in the race, but does not get up itself to win the race. Horse that was 4.5 back, 4 back, 3 back, and of course got up to only 2 lengths back at the end. A nice slow, even flow to close in that race. Again, 3, 3, 2, and 1. Very slow, very gradual, a positive sign. Right here, 5, 5, 4, and 3. Well, it wasn't much of a move, but it was slow and easy. Again, here's a horse that made a pretty astounding move, 5, 4, 2, and a neck. This horse closed quite a bit of ground in that race, but all of these horses would have a closing flow. They advanced on the leader. They showed that they wanted to win. They showed that they were in contention there. We'd give them this mark, and we put the lengths back.
Okay, again, the closing flow or a closing horse has to have a smooth flow going forward, and a horse that is a backward flow has to have a smooth back flow, in other words, and of course the winner is in the winner's circle. Now let's talk about the erratic moves, the horses that jump up several lengths, come back several lengths, or in a sense go nowhere. Go ahead.
All right, this is the erratic move, and let's go through this. This is a horse that was 5 lengths back, then 4 lengths, then 7 lengths, then 3 lengths. Very, very erratic move on that horse. We'll come back to this horse. 6 back, 3 back, 6 back, 2 back. Now what this probably means that there was some trouble at some point in this race, and this horse lost some lengths because of that erratic move. Again, 11, 7, 10, and 4. Probably some trouble at one point in the race here. Down to the bottom, 1 length back, 2 lengths back, 5 lengths back, and then of course closed right at the end. Again, an erratic move on this horse's part. So we're going to give it this symbol mark, and we're going to put the lengths at the end, 3, 2, 4, 2.5, whatever pertains to that horse.
Okay, so in other words, the last position that it was in, or the amount of lengths that it was behind the winner, is what goes in the little erratic move design there. Now again, we only concern ourselves with the last 3 calls, really, that the horse gets in in the past performance. In other words, on the top line, he was 4, 7, and 3. He went from 4 lengths behind to 7 to 3 lengths behind. We put 3 in the little design, but that was a very erratic move. So that when you look at your chart and you see the erratic move symbol there and a 3 in it, you know that he was 3 behind the leader, but there was some erratic moves, and you can go back and then refer to the move if you have to. Okay, so once we establish the fact that we have a dot over recency, we have a dot over weight, which means they qualify, and we have a dot over the value line, and then we come down and give them a symbol. Now, if they don't qualify, we don't even bother to go on to see what these moves are with the horse. Okay, now let's take a whole chart and just look at the moves that we are looking for here and see, without identifying the horses, trainers, jockeys, or anything, and see where these horses fit in a real race. Okay, we have a 6-horse field up here. Now let's just take the vital information that you have given us. Say that today's racing day is March 13th. We want to subtract 21 days from that. Say that this is a month that February has 28 days, so 21 from March 13th gives us what?
February 20th.
Okay, so everything from February 20th on qualifies certainly in the date.
Under
okay?
recency.
Under recency. Okay.
And we're going to take our pen and we're going to make our marks on the racing form just like we do when we go to the track every day.
Okay.
All right, let's go to our first horse. Now
Okay.
again, recency, we're looking for February 20th. This horse is March the 6th, so that qualifies.
Right.
And we can put our mark right up here in the racing form that it qualifies under recency. We move over here to our weight. 115 pounds is the weight this horse will carry this afternoon. Does it qualify under weight?
Yes.
Yes, it does. So we will make our mark under weight. We'll move over here to our value line. $32,000 is the value this afternoon. Is this horse raced on that value line 2 out of its last 3? Well, it did not here, but it did here, and it also did here. So this horse does qualify under value, and it will receive our dot or our mark right here in the racing form.
In other words, it raced in a claiming race 2 out of 3 and for the value or more that it's racing today.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
All right, let's take a look at our past performance line. A neck, 1.5, and 1. This is an erratic movement on this horse, so we're going to give it the erratic sign, like this, and 1 length. It's an erratic movement on the horse. It was 1 length back of the winner at the end of that race.
Okay.
All right, simple as that. Let's go to the rest of the horses. Right here again, under the date, February 27th, everything from February 20th qualifies, so we'll give it a qualifying mark right there in recency. We move over to the weight, 115 pounds today. Certainly qualifies under weight all the way down, so we'll give it a qualifying mark right there. Move over here to our value line. $32,000 claiming price today. Well, it was an allowance the last 3 times. Now, because this was in the allowance ranks, and today we're in claiming ranks, this horse does not qualify, even though this was at a higher level than today.
Right.
All right, so we get no mark over here. Let's take a look at how this horse ran. 7 3/4 lengths back, 12 lengths back, 9 lengths back, another erratic movement. All right, so make our erratic movement sign on our program or racing form and give it 9 for 9 lengths back.
Okay, great.
All right, let's move down here. Again, qualifies on the recency, February the 20th. We'll make our mark right here. We take a look at the weight, 117 pounds. Remember, we have an apprentice. We add that 5 pounds. That makes it 119 there. 119 there, so the 3 of those would qualify. 3 out of the last 5 races.
Just makes it 117.
Just makes it. We qualify right there on weight. Let's move over to the value line. $32,000 today. Well, it had that $32,000 and it had a $35,000. So again, this one qualifies.
Okay.
We'll give it our qualifying mark.
Even though its last race was an allowance race, it was still 2 out of 3 in claiming.
That's right.
Last.
Let's take a look at the past performance line. It was a head back, it was 2 back, it was 2 1/4 back. This horse has a backward flow. Very even, but it was a backward flow. So we'll make the backward flow mark in this race, which goes like this, and that was 2 1/4 lengths back in the race.
Okay.
Okay, let's move up here. Again, February 20th, this is our cutoff date, but this horse does qualify. So we'll qualify it right up here on recency. Let's look at the weight. 109 pounds, but again, we add the 5 pounds for today, so it makes it 114. It qualifies here, 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 qualifies all up and down the line. So again, we qualify here on our weight. Let's look over here. $30,000 is the sale price this afternoon. Does not qualify there, but again, it was over 30,000 here, was over 30,000 here, so this horse does qualify, and we get our mark in here. Now let's take a look at the running line on this horse. 7 3/4, 11, 14, certainly a backward flow. That's a negative sign, but we'll make it 14, backward flow, 14. Let's go on to our next example down here. Again, it qualifies on the recency. Anything after February the 20th, put our mark right there. Come over here, 115 pounds, up and down the line, qualifies in every category, so we'll qualify it there in the weight. Go over here to our value line, $32,000. Now we have 3 races here, Tim, of $20,000. So we do not qualify in our value line. Let's take a look at the past performance line anyway. 4 1/2, a neck, 2 1/4. Another an erratic running line. So we're going to make it 2 1/4 lengths there because this horse was going backwards and then going forwards once again. All right, our last one, February 25th. Qualify on that. Let's look at our weight, 115 pounds. Certainly qualify up and down the lane on weight. Go over here, $32,000. We don't qualify there. We do qualify here, but we don't qualify there. So we do not get a qualifying mark over here in our value. Let's take a look at our line. 5 1/2, 3 1/2, and 2. All right, this horse does have a closing flow. So we will give it a closing mark and put 2 lengths back. Now let's go back and kind of recap everything and see what we have. All right, we have a horse here with 2 marks, doesn't qualify in value. We're going to throw that one out. Take a look at this one. We have 2 marks. Again, we don't qualify in value. It's a horse we have to hold in here temporarily, but this backward flow up here, 14 lengths, that certainly is not a good sign and probably not a place you want to put your money this afternoon. Down here, well, we certainly have 3 qualifying marks there, so we're going to hold this one for just a moment. We come up here, we have 2 qualifying marks. This horse is not in the right value. We're going to throw that one out for the time being. And up here we have 3 qualifying marks here, but this horse is an erratic horse. Now, really our decision here is between the erratic horse here and the horse that has the backward flow. That's where a decision comes.
Okay, and going back to what Chris said, it's better to have a nice even flow of a horse, so obviously we would take the 3 horse. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that the horse is going to win, but he will possibly win, and he will probably more than likely, of all these 6 horses, be in the hunt somewhere, so you have selected a horse that at least you're going to get your money's worth somewhere. And you don't always have to bet to win, obviously.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with getting 80 cents back on a show bet.
Right.
Okay, when we started, you said there are certain rules. Don't bend them. If you bend them, you might as well break them. So we will stick by these rules in picking these horses. Let's go through an 8-horse field and see what we come up with.
All right, here's our second race. Now, today, the date of today's race is?
February 25th.
Okay, that makes it February the 4th. Everything after February 4th qualifies. Let's go to the first horse. Now, remember what we said about year? This is June. Obviously June of last year, so right now this horse is out.
Okay, so he doesn't qualify right away.
He does not qualify.
You don't even look any further.
We don't look any farther.
That's the rule?
That's the rule.
Okay.
Let's go to our second horse, right here. February 18th, this horse certainly qualifies, so we'll give him our mark right there on recency. Okay, over here on our weight, 115 pounds. There's a 115-pound qualifying right there, down the line.
The rule is that he had to carry that weight or more as an average of his last 5 races.
In his last 5 races.
Okay.
All right, let's move over here. $12,500 is the value this afternoon. Well, he did not carry it there. He was out of value there. He did not carry it there. So this horse does not qualify.
History.
He's out.
Gone. Okay.
All right, let's move down one more. February 11th?
Right.
Recency, we qualify. So we'll give him our mark right there on February 11th. Now again, we'll look at the weight. This may confuse some people, so we'll go through it very slowly once again. He has an apprenticed weight this afternoon, so this is 115 pounds, and that's what we're looking for. And we certainly have 115 pounds or more in his past 5 races, so he qualifies in weight.
Okay.
And we'll give him our qualifying mark on weight. Let's go over here to our value line, $12,500. Well, he qualifies there. He qualifies in all 3 counts, so this horse qualifies.
He wasn't claiming for his value or higher.
Or higher.
Out of the 3.
Okay, 2 out of his last 3 races, and we'll give him a qualifying mark right there. Now let's take a look at his running line. 14, 17, 13 1/4. This is an erratic line.
Right.
So we make our symbol for an erratic race, and we write 13 3/4 lengths That's the distance this horse finished behind the winner in his last race.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we'll move down here. February 15th. Again, this horse qualifies on its recency. Move over, 116 pounds. Well, this is 116 pounds also. 116, 120, 117, 118.
Qualifies.
This horse qualifies. Move over to our value line, $12,500. An unqualifier there, but again, 2 out of 3, and we qualify there, but we do not qualify here. So, Tim, this horse is thrown out.
Out of it already. Okay. You
We're
don't
out.
even go to the past performance.
Don't even have to worry about it.
Okay.
Let's move right on. We're going to move up here. February the 15th. This horse qualifies on recency. We'll give him our qualifying mark. 114 pounds. Certainly qualifies all the way down the line. Have the qualifying mark right there. And let's go over here to our value line. 10,500. 10,000 does not qualify. 16 and 12.5. We have 2 out of 3 qualifiers there. So this horse gets a qualifying mark.
He was claimed at 12.5. That's what that
In fact,
seems
he was
like.
claimed. That's
Okay.
correct. Now let's take a look at his running style. 3, 3.5, and 4.5. This horse has a backward flow of 4.5.
And the smooth flow that we were looking for.
That's right. It's a smooth flow. It's not a herky-jerky type. It was just a half a length.
Wrong direction, but smooth.
Wrong direction, but it was smooth.
Okay.
All right, let's go to our next horse, February 6th. This horse qualifies again anything to February the 4th. So we'll give him a qualifying mark right there in recency. We look over here, 116 pounds. Yes, 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 all the way down the line. Qualifies right there under weight. Over here under value of $12,500. 16 qualifies, does not there, but does qualify here. Again, we need 2 out of 3 there to earn our mark, and we earn our mark. So this horse again has earned all 3 marks.
Okay.
Let's take a look at his running line. A half a length back, a half a length back, and then he tailed off here to 5 1/4 lengths back. So he had a backward flow of 5 1/4 lengths. You notice this was a lot more erratic than the horse that we had just looked at up there.
Right.
Okay, back down here, January the 16th. This horse does not qualify.
So long.
So long. We forget him right there. And we go down to our bottom horse, February the 15th. Now, this is where weight is very important. Let's take a look at this one. 116 pounds, 116. Well, right here he's 1 off. Right? Right here he's back to even. He's back to even. Right here he loses. So this horse does not qualify in weight. Even at first glance you might think he does. So right now...
Even for that 2 pounds, which is seemingly 5 races back, he doesn't qualify, right?
Even for that 2 pounds, he does not qualify.
Okay.
We're not bending our rules, so this horse does not qualify. He does earn his mark over here. So let's go back and take a look at this race. These are the horses that seem to qualify for us. This horse has 3 marks. He has a backward flow of 5 1/4 lengths. Horse has 3 marks, a backward flow of 4 1/2 lengths. And we have another horse over here that has 3 marks. He has an erratic movement of 13 3/4 lengths. This is probably the first horse you would throw out. You would make your selection with one or two of these
and
horses.
Going back to, again, what Chris said, and Trevor too, that even flow backwards is better, so you've got to go for the top horse then.
Absolutely. We have a very small, even flow here where this horse was right there and then just gave it up at the end. So this would be my horse.
Okay, great. Not guaranteed winner, but
this horse will probably run for you this afternoon.
Right. Okay, great. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about, say, the maiden races. You know, Chris said in a maiden race, obviously these are the new babies coming out most of the time, or some older horses who haven't won yet. We don't know too much about them, so what do we do with the maidens?
Well, these are unknown commodities, and what we call these our hot dog races. These are the races that we go and get a hot dog. We wait and we see what happens, because these horses are trying a lot of new things. They're trying blinkers today, they're trying 2 turns today, they're trying their racing career for the first time. And like the commodities market, these are unknown commodities, and as you know, if you go to the commodities market, you can invest in gold, in silver, in sugar. Some of these horses later on may be stakes horses, and maybe gold and silver, some may be pork bellies.
You got to wait. Okay. All right, and the handicap races, the stakes races, what do we do there?
Well, I'll tell you, there's another race that you sit back and get a hot dog, because here's the real pageantry. These are the stars of today and the stars of tomorrow, and those are the races that you want to sit back and relax and maybe get a hot dog, but really take in racing for what it's all about.
Yeah, we were talking about if you had gone to bet, say, when Ali Sheba was racing with Chris on him that one time when Ali Sheba came on the track, and I mean, his neck was bowed. I mean, you saw the champion. He looked at the crowd, said, "Hello, folks, how are you?" He looked at the tote board and said, "I'm out here to win today." You'd have missed all that standing in line to make a $2 wager. So that is a good idea, to sit around and watch the champs at a time like that. Okay, this is great. Thank you very much. Now that you do this, I understand how you can get through this thing so rapidly. I mean, it really is a very simple process, and the nice thing about having this on tape is that you can go back and review it again and just keep going over it and over it. The rules are very simple, and as you say, don't bend them, because when you bend them, you break them, so just stick with it.
You know, we really want to challenge the people to go ahead and try this method and see if they come up with maybe the same horses that they've been spending 2 and 3 hours handicapping the night before, because I think in a lot of cases you'll come up with exactly the same horse, and that's really the key, saving yourself a little time and having some fun with it.
That's a good idea. Handicap the way you normally do, and then do this, because this really takes you about a minute and a half each race, and see if you come up with the same horses, or if these horses work out a little bit better for you. Okay, some nice handicapping tips for you. Thank you. Thank you very much for hanging around with us for this short distance. So we hope that we've helped you with a few handicapping tips and helped you to better enjoy the great sport of horse racing. I'd like to thank Steve for certainly shortening our handicap day by just doing that little short method there. It's marvelous. So we'll have now, of course, more time to spend at the track.
Well, I know that we could pick some winners. Now, I see out there all the time. How many days a week do you go to the track?
I'm only there when they're open, really. And when they're not open, I am not. I've tried to, on Monday and Tuesday, it's very slow, so I don't go there. Also, Trevor Denman, as I said, if you're within earshot of a track where you can hear Trevor call a race, please go, because, I mean, it's such an addition to the great game of horse racing. Trevor, give us one more of your signatures before you go.
And away they go.
See what I mean? If you have a voice like that, anybody could actually be an announcer, I guess. Of course. And Chris, my good friend, you know, as you meet heroes along in life, and seriously, I have, in being in this business, had the fortune to meet a lot of heroes, going way back, really, to Babe Ruth, to Jack Dempsey, I mean, to really some of the great ones. Sinatra still thinks I can't talk because I just don't, and to meet a guy like Chris, who is absolutely the best when it comes to jockeydom, it's a great thrill for me, really, just to know you, let alone to have you here, Chris. And thanks very much for being here, and perhaps you'll have an opportunity to ride one of our horses soon.
Oh, God, I hope not. I've seen your horses run, Tim. Fortunately,
Thanks,
all I've ever seen is their face.
See a lot of horses behinds when you're on our horse, I'll tell you that. Opportunity that everybody should have. Again, thank you for joining us. If you're horse people, you're our kind of people, because they are certainly my kind of people. And we hope that we've given you a better insight to horse racing. I'll tell you one last story that probably kind of sums up what real gamblers are, or what real people who enjoy the races are. There's a guy in a movie, and he's watching this movie, and another guy sits down next to him, and he leans over to him, and it's about racing, the movie. And he says to the guy, I'll bet you $10 that the 4-horse wins the race. And the guy says, okay, fine, you're on. So the movie goes on, and the 6-horse wins the race. So the guy starts to get out the $10 to give it to him, and he says, here's your $10. The other guy says, no, really, I can't take it. He said, I knew the 6 was going to win. I've seen the movie before. And the guy says, so have I, but I thought that 4 would improve. It's kind of what we're all about. We don't give up when you're into horses. So let's hope that you go out, buy a ticket, and it's a winner for you. Thank you very much.
Music by Robbie Fox.
I got it.